All right, all right, all right. This is week 8. Crazy as that seems. Man, this semester is going fast. I think because I'm creating so much content for this course, which I'm enjoying. I hope you are as well. Couple things as we move into week 8. Week 9 is that halfway point of the semester. Remember, I don't recommend this for anybody unless you're just really not really struggling. Is like next Friday of the week 9 is the last day you can drop this class. It does show as an attempt on your transcript. Again, I'm not recommending, but understand what drops do, right, for your overall campus status, which I couldn't necessarily answer, which counseling generally does very well. So think of that. Okay, so this week in our class, we're going to do a bit of conditional logic. So a conditional rendering of the DOM. So condition like if, else. Okay, and if that condition could have operators or like and, or, and so we'll talk about that this week. And this is really getting you primed. I kind of planned this, I guess, to actually think about your first dev project that I highlighted in week 6. Okay, so perfect timing to, I believe, do that. Okay, so let me just go look at my list, right? So next week is your first dev work will be due, and conditional logic this week. So I actually have a question for you. I've been thinking about the way I roll out content. And so when I look at week 9, right, the attendance post, a code along, and a discussion. So in this case, I'm dropping for each week that we have development a code along and adding the decision app, the step 1, right? So, and in this case, I only updated this to reflect the folder. So you'll build, again, this is highlighting what's coming in week 9, but I'm actually thinking of putting it, and this is why I'm bringing it up here. I want your opinion because your opinion matters, right? I mean, yes, I ultimately make the decision, but it's a better decision with your input. So in this case, I'm thinking of actually creating a folder that's not part of the required weekly work. So as I add the steps, right? Do you remember what I meant by steps? I think I'm going to end up landing on 7 of them. 7 steps is what I think I decided on. So there'll be 7 different steps or different submissions where I break down what you're doing. Okay. If you're taking my 82 class, this is like what you're doing with the template, right? Where you've learned enough to then use a template, and then during the work, during the work of the course, I have you kind of working on it. But in this case, this project, and I think somebody asked me a question now about if this, so dev work is its own separate grade percentage. It's a good question. I need to actually put that. I'll put that in the writing here. So I think what I will do here is, instead of like I'm doing on the week, and you probably all are going to say, yeah, you want me to do this. So it would be interesting to see, is that I'll add the step 1 because I already have the written instruction for that. And I want you to follow my instruction. I think I'm going to end up doing branches for each step. So like step 1, you'll do that code, and a branch is basically taking, and I'll have a video on this, but like where you ended that code and start a branch to where it leaves the original code in place so that I can see the progression over time. And you can see it, and you get the experience of creating branches. And that's good stuff to know how to do, because that's really where you're starting to take more and more, like learn more and more GitHub and more of what happens in the real world, right? Okay, so step 1 and step 2. So I'm going to publish step 1, and again, I want your feedback about this. I generally post early, so I may only get a couple of you with your feedback here. I think I'm going to end up saying, yes, I'll just publish it outside of the required weekly, so that you'll end up seeing probably somewhere in here. And that would be the other thing why it might get confusing. Or actually, I can just go to the end. Actually, that's what I can do. See, I've talked myself through it now. Is I can go to the very end and actually put in a section that doesn't require prerequisites, and then you would see that as well. Okay, so I think I'll do that. But if you have any feedback about that, I'd be totally open to hearing it. So, but let me answer the question that somebody asked me, and I think I can do it here, no problem. Right, so if I go in and look, and if you don't know this, right, so the attendance posts are just for attendance, right, and part of it is I'm having you get also code ready for that week, but it is attendance, it is not part of your grade. Okay, but in this case, I go all the way through. Ooh, I gotta fix that. Anyway, so here we have, so 20% of your grade comes from these this decision app, right, that you'll be doing. Right, and basically here's what you're doing. You're writing code that is conditional logic that you, and here's the deal, use something that you make a decision about fairly often. It means more to you. Like for me, an example I'll probably code up, which is different than what I've done last semester, is actually I take the idea, because like here's a reality for me. I track my sleep. And if my sleep score, I wake up and I have a bad sleep score and I don't have enough time to kind of get myself geared up for going to the gym, I don't. So I could write the logic, the if, right, if else, and then the conditions that would reflect that decision being made. And all you're doing not all you're doing, but in step one is setting up some variables, setting up the if blocks, right? And using console.log. We're not going in this step one all the way, okay, all the way to the where you're at now with the app. As a matter of fact, the place we're at now, where you end up, is kind of where in these steps your app should have the functionality of that. It should have the CRUD operations by the time you get through, okay, this week, which is week 16. So then you'll have a week where we'll probably have a few more, because at that point we're probably doing more asynchronous code, maybe even object-oriented stuff. And here's where it gets a little interesting, because in our weekly work we're going to continue building out stuff, but in your dev work you're going to kind of go back, not kind of, you're going to go back to the beginning of what we started with. And in this sense, I think it's really good, because it really basically means you're going to go through this process twice. Once with me, once with us as a group, right? And now you're going to go through it writing code. Now, it doesn't mean you can't get help. You absolutely can, and you absolutely should, right? But also attempting, right? So you got to come up with the concept. I'll have you do some writing for this first one. Like, what is the decision that you're going to make? What's the code, right? What is the decision that you're going to write code to represent, right? So, and now the code review, right? So you'll have at minimum 2 of the dev works done, okay, before the window opens for this. Now, I've been thinking about this too. And I'm almost tempted not to say this, but I'm going to. Remember, and by the way, if we go back to looking at the assignments, there's only one code review, right? Where's it at? Code along. There's all the code alongs. There's only one code review. It's worth 20. Only one assignment worth 20% of your grade. So, and actually, I consciously really thought about this 20%. And here's why, and I almost don't want to say it, but I'm going to anyway, is could you get through this class without doing a code review? Yeah, you just have to get, you could actually, if you nailed everything else in this class, if you got 100%, you didn't do a code review, you'd get 80% in this class, right? But that is an option. And the reason I did that is I had so many students that were just thinking the code review was going to be so hard, which, by the way, if you've followed along and you've understood the concepts, as a matter of fact, this week, as part of the first assignment, I actually walk you through the code we've written so far, and it's fairly quick. I'm not going to say it's not, right? So in week 8, one of the first things I'm gonna have you do is I'm gonna ask you to write your understanding of what the code that we've already written, because the code we've already written at this point represents a lot of what your dev work, your decision making app is going to look like, function like, not look like. You're going to end up, and this code base that we're writing here, it's not that you can't use the patterns that we've established with modules, right? And, of course, naming conventions you still use, the way you write functions, right? But you'll come up with your own topic and implement your own, how to write your code to do that. But in some ways, it may look close. It shouldn't look exactly like the code we've been writing. But that should give you a guideline, right? A very good guide or a very good reference. Because then when you're trying to do something and it's not in there, what do? Reach out for help, talk to chat, right? Whatever it takes, Google, whatever it takes to, because that's part of being a developer, honestly. It's just figuring out how to, it's like I want to do this thing, and part of it is just what words would I want to use to search for that thing, right? So probably a little more than you wanted. Anyway, I hope you get the idea. Here in week 8, we do some really fun stuff, right? We're going to actually implement the last 2 operations. Well, almost completely, because your discussion this week is actually going to be, because right at the end of the second code along, I get you to the D for the delete, show you how to actually get the D button, the delete button working. And I set you up to start working on the edit, the U update. Remember CR we've already done. U update, okay, really edit, same thing, similar thing, and then D. So, but I'm going to have you do that I'm going to have you attempt it as part of the discussion this week. So, and I wore this shirt, okay, Hack for Change. I got this at Google. Several years ago, I did community work at Google, and I was there actually doing hackathons. It was so fun, and I ended up not working, but volunteering with several community groups through Google, and it was a wonderful experience. And I got this shirt that I still own today. It's one of my absolute favorite shirts, and I wore it because one of the things I do this week is I do a little bit of a hack. I kind of do a not the best practices code, but it gets us to CRUD operations for beginner style, or beginner level, I hope. Anyway, I'm rambling. I can feel it, and I'm tired. So have a great time, and then as your reply to this, right? Yes, you can give me feedback about that. Probably by this point that you've seen it, because I can depend on a couple of people who actually work ahead. Thank you very much, those of you that do. But I will probably end up putting this, the dev project stuff that's going to hit you next week. So next week's when you get to week 9, you'll see this, but you'll probably see the decision app at the bottom to where you can work on those as I post them. I don't know if that'll get confusing because the due dates will be within here. Yeah, see, that's where it gets a little like if I do that, it separates, but on the calendar, it'll be the same. Anyway, give me a chance to talk about it next week. Peace out.